creating a plan for your developmental piece.
Okay, when you get to the stage where you need to start designing your final piece, you can spend as little or as much time as you like on this task. It might be that you sketch out a quick composition so you have it in your mind what it is you're going to do, or it might be that you spend a good couple of hours working on several different compositions in detail with colour. It's completely up to you how you work and how much time you have to do it. So for example, I'm just going to show you how you might get started. So up to now, I've been working landscape. So it makes sense to me that my work is going to continue landscape into its final piece. So on my page, I'm going to just draw out 2 landscape boxes like this. And then in each one of those, I'm going to come up with a different idea for my final piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look back at my work. Hopefully you found the tutorial helpful on how to get ideas for developing your final piece design. But I'll be looking back through my book, working out what worked well for me, what materials, what colours, what compositions, and I'm going to use that to aid my my ideas. So I really liked Cubism. I looked at the Cubist artist Juan Gris, and I really liked the way he worked. So I probably am going to use some element of Cubism within my work. I'm going to just sketch out my bottle. I think about the other half of my bottle there. So this is the way I work quite quickly when I'm just coming up with ideas. But if you want to spend a little bit longer on like planning out, that's absolutely fine. It's completely up to you, as I said earlier. But I'm just drawing out my Cubist design, my composition, and I'm remembering what I learnt about rules of thirds as well. So I'm making sure that I've got height here of my bottle, and then that comes down over here. So my focal points are the bottle and the plate of fruit here. So I like the idea of recreating my Cubist piece that I did earlier on in the module. But now I need to think about how I'm actually going to make this. Is it going to be another pastel piece? Is it going to be a painting? And this is what I need to decide. So I've done my experimentation with different materials, using those to create collages and then painting over the top. So I'm going to think about what works really well for that. And I know that I want to use newspaper because that adds interest. I'll label this, I'll press hard so as you can see that, okay. So I'm going to have a collage background to start. Painting over the top of the fabric worked really well. So I might actually incorporate fabric, but this time, rather than make a random composition for my collage, I might actually consider the shapes and actually try and recreate some of these shapes using the materials. So I might actually use canvas to recreate this cloth. Okay. The corrugated card looked quite interesting as well, but because that is a very textural, it's got a lot of height to it. I want that in the foreground. I know that if it's in the background, it's going to it's probably not going to work very well because it's got a bit of height to it. If that's in the foreground, that's going to aid. That's going to help the foreground of the painting come forward as well. So I'm going to probably use some corrugated card for the edge of the table. The tissue paper crinkled up worked really well. I quite like that for the background. Tissue paper. And I might even add some more elements to this as well. I might add some more vessels to the design. And just use some sugar paper. Might add some more newspaper. Rather than just put in newspaper here in the background, I might actually add that into the main part of the composition as well, just to draw the eye round. So that's going to be some newspaper there. So I'm using lots of different flat materials for this first composition. In my second design, I might consider how I'm going to use some more chunky materials like string or coffee stirrers, splints, that kind of thing. Yeah, no, I'm happy with that. I think that's given me a really good idea of what I could do for my final outcome. That's a really good starting point. Okay, so for my second design, I really like the composition, but I want to think about how I could do that differently. So what I'm going to do is actually think about how I can make my design a little bit more angular, a little bit more like the cubist sort of style. So again, I'm going to keep the rule of thirds, the composition, but this time I'm going to make it slightly more angular. And a bit more abstract. And then what I'll do is I'll just make a decision on what I think is going to work best. I quite like still using there. So I could, for my angles, I could actually outline these with coffee stirrers or sticks. Quite like the idea of doing that actually, and actually build up like outlines. Maybe add some more vessels as well, but keep the rule of thirds. Maybe add a bit more height here. Corrugated card still, because that's, like I say, quite textural, adds a nice height. Maybe put more in this time. Corrugated card. Maybe just cardboard layered. So I put one piece on top of the other, so that creates height there as well. More cardboard. And some tissue paper in the background, but maybe experiment with the way you apply the materials. So I said earlier about crinkling up the tissue paper so as it creates lots of creases. Maybe try and do that a bit more dramatically so you get some more height on that. Right, I'm really happy with both of my designs. So the idea now is to choose which one you think is going to be most effective and then start making it. However, a final piece does not have to be one single outcome. If you like both of your designs equally, why not make them both? There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It might even be that you create a series, so you might continue on with this idea of using these particular materials and create a second composition, and that could be a diptych, so they could work well together. You might want to make 3 pieces which join in some way, which is called a triptych. But I just want to make it very clear that a final piece isn't limited to one piece of work. It can be more than one. This might be on paper, this might be on a canvas board, this might be on a canvas, it might be on a piece of wood. It's completely up to you how you work and what scale you work at as well. So just because it's a final piece, it does not have to be scaled up. You could continue working on the scale that you've been working at. My advice would be to push yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone and try something new. So for me, I think that I am going to work on A3 paper to create my designs.